When I was a kid, one of my favorite books was Mandy by Julie Andrews, the Julie Andrews. Did anybody else read that book? No? Okay, well, I highly recommend it. It came out back in 1971. She's also done some picture books and other things. And my memory of the book is a little bit fuzzy, but I remember that Mandy lived in an orphanage in England and would sneak out into the woods to go for walks. She found this little cottage that was empty and cleaned it up to make a place of her own to spend time during the day. And something that has always stuck in my memory is that this 10-year-old kid was sure to find soap flakes to bring out to do her washing up after afternoon tea. It became her home when there were soap flakes next to the sink. I loved the book for the simplicity of her mission. She wanted to love a place and to have agency in a life that offered her few choices or security. I'm also a sucker for a story about how a little elbow grease makes something once loved shine again. I drove to Boston for a couple of times in the last couple of weeks to see old friends. One of the trips went right through my old hometown, which is about 10 miles outside the city. I hadn't been back in a while, and there were, of course, a lot of changes, though some things were the same. I got stuck in awful traffic on 128, and so I turned off my GPS and bailed off the highway and made it the windy way through my old back routes that eventually got me where I needed to go. I'm grateful to live now where I do, looking out on a wall of green trees and undergrowth. Outside my window when I was writing, there were ferns taking over an old stone wall and my cat stalking in the grass by the garden. Jane Johnston's Schoolcraft's poem To the Pine Tree reminded me of this, of coming home to green in gratitude. Also, if I never go over the Tobin Bridge again, totally fine with that. Lordy Loodle. Home can mean where we live, where we are from, something we're moving toward. It can be a place, a state of mind and heart, a community. Sometimes where someone lives, while technically a home, can be unsafe or insecure, and many have no home at all. As a global community, our home is in peril from climate change. This summer, we're seeing unprecedented wildfires in Canada, causing mass evacuations and smoke impact around the world and right here. The fire on Maui last week and the floods happening right now in Mexico and Canada. It's a lot, right? In his book, At Home, Bill Bryson traces the history of the English home from prehistoric England forward and spends quite a bit of time on Victorian home life. In the early 1800s, the average lifespan in England became lower than in the Iron Age, about 19 years old. In order to fuel the Industrial Revolution, and because of the new global economy that grew out of the colonial system, pulling natural resources out of North America and around the world, slave labor in the United States, the English farming system completely collapsed. Everyone moved to the cities, lived in workhouses, worked in factories, and spread disease like nobody's business. Bryson doesn't say it directly, but I think he spent so much time of the book on this part of history as a warning. At the end of the book, now written over a decade ago, he writes, "Of the total energy produced on Earth since the Industrial Revolution began, half has been consumed in just the last 20 years. We are able to live as we do because we use resources at hundreds of times the rate of most of the planet's other citizens. One day, and don't expect it to be a distant day, many of those 6 billion or so less well-off people are bound to demand what we have and to get it as effortlessly as we got it. And that will require more resources than the planet can easily or even conceivably yield. The greatest possible irony would be if, in our endless quest to fill our lives with comfort and happiness, we created a world that had neither. In this summer of fires and floods and tornadoes and storms, I've been thinking about safety, home, and what comes next. It was 10 years ago this week that we were preparing to leave the Claire Teague Senior Center and move to our new home at Ahavas Shalom. My sermon 10 years ago today was on home, and I didn't do that on purpose. Less than 1 year later, in 2014, we moved to this building. Now we are embarking on a big project to repair and restore a lot of this building. We're going to use a lot of soap flakes. Part of what makes a place feel like we belong is the opportunity to care for it. Part of what helps us feel a sense of belonging in community is the opportunity to offer our care to others. In our small community, we can continue to practice these same tools that we will need to manage the larger challenges facing our world. What are some of the things that we can practice? If you shout them out, I'll repeat it. What are some of the things that we can practice here related to making this place a community and a home that we can use when we go back out in the world? Anyone? Resounding silence. I'll give you a minute. Yeah, I can repeat the question. So what are some of the things that we practice here related to making this place a home, however you define that, and a community that we then use when we go out and do other stuff in the world? Like if we're gonna, I don't know, solve climate change, how do we practice that here? Not using plastic forks, sure. And other plastic things, yeah. Reciprocity, nice. Pauline? A place where we all come together, yeah. Making connections. Sharing what we have. How do we make decisions? What are some of the things about how we make decisions?
Democratically.
Yeah, democratically. Thank you, Wendy. Well, sorry, what was that? Respectfully, yeah. Considerate. Volunteering, yeah. Just rolling up our sleeves and dumping the soap flakes in water, right? Y'all did that for a whole week 2 weeks ago. Welcoming, yeah. This is great. See, you thought you didn't have anything to say, and now you have a lot to say. May we be ever more attentive to our place in the web, our connections, and the power of those interconnections as we figure out what's next in our little congregation and out in the world. So may it be. And amen.